also a writer, producer. Similar to all things 360, we tend to kind of just do everything. And I also do sound. I started as a musician, and as many sound guys start, you just want yourself to sound better. So you sit down and you learn things and you try to figure out how to make it work. I think I gave the sound on about 98% of the things that Brent showed. And typically when I'm working, I'm doing the recording, sound editing, sound design, all of those videos that he showed you. Just like we want to work towards visually building worlds, well, I have to do that for literally everything that we make. Actually, right now, I want to talk a little bit, since we're getting into spatial audio, just about what sound is in general. Who here has ever run a mixer before or just held a microphone in their hand? Right on, okay, it's a good crowd, awesome, fantastic. So if I move a microphone further away from a source, what tends to start happening?
Bass roll-off.
Exactly, bass roll-off, that's exactly correct. I like this guy, Gary, thank you. That's exactly correct. Whenever you move a microphone further away from its source, you're going to have inherent issues with the sound. The biggest thing is bass roll-off, increased reverberation, because frankly, just like when your ears move away from someone talking to you, that source is getting further and further away. It's going to bounce around every surface in the room before it gets back to our ears or a microphone. So I just want us to consider that before we talk about, who knows what this thing is right here? Anybody? Raise a hand. Awesome. This is actually, and we got a slide. This is the first phonograph, 1877. I think the recording was Mary Had a Little Lamb that Edison ran into this thing. Now, the thing is, mono recordings, which was the default playback in 2005 for YouTube, while videos are still processing, they tend to play back in mono. Mono sounds great. A single speaker can work fantastic. The majority of mixes from stereo, from 7.1. Who's here? Who likes movies? You guys all been to a movie theater? Right? I feel like, okay, more people probably. The thing about a movie theater, and I want to show you guys, most of the sound, like the actual dBs, the sound pressure levels that are pumping out of a screen, are coming from not the speakers that you're seeing on the sides, but right down the hidden speaker that's behind the screen. There's a very important reason for that. When we're playing a film, we want viewers' eyes to be on the screen. We don't want them looking at this. That's taken away from the action, all the work that the editors and director and camera people have done. So when we're mixing, what we always want to be considering is, hey, the action is in front of us. So what we can put to the sides is pretty limited. Generally just reverb, music, but most of your hard sound effects, people talking, all that comes straight down the center. So when we're working with spatial audio or binaural, all these rules still apply. So now I want to get into Ambisonics, which is the thing that's kind of been this new modern innovation that's very cool, but it's existed since the 70s. It's just a different way to play back sound. Just like stereo, which is left-right, we're adding in 2 more channels. Now, I want to break down this little image for you because it might be a little confusing. First at the top there, we got mono sound, that single sphere. Below that, we've got stereo sound spheres. And right there in the little highlighted region, we have first order Ambisonics. Now, while Ambisonics, again, came out in the 70s, you get really, really, really detailed sound when you use higher order forms, and they're able to map to like 8 speakers, 16 speakers, even more. There's crazy maps out there. YouTube right now will only play back 4 channels, which presents some problems because a 360 sphere is completely around us. So the thing is, things just aren't as spatial as we'd like them to be right now. When we work inside of Pro Tools, which is what I usually work in, it's the professional audio digital workstation that most mixers and editors use in sound, we can monitor back in 7.1, which is 8 channels. You get incredible spatialization. I can put something on the ceiling, have someone talk behind me, have someone talk over there. You can't, if I turn away, complete separation from everyone. Problem is, what happens when we try to get that thing onto YouTube? Because it's still kind of a problematic, time-consuming situation. We edit in Pro Tools, we spatialize using special spatialization programs, then we have to encode that 8-track file down to 4 channels. Then we have to mux it, which, does anybody know what muxing is? Anybody ever work with? Essentially, it's taking a video file and separate audio file and sticking those things together. It's just an extra step inside this process. Again, just more compression. And all I'm getting at here is that there's big information loss. What you hear working on your thing, be it on a high-quality laptop, be it on a dub stage, it's not necessarily what you're going to hear back on YouTube right now. Again, just as Brent was saying, this is emerging technology. We are dealing with these issues, and we're working to create strategies to get around this. But what I want to show you guys here is that there are means around these things. Things don't necessarily need to be spatial or as spatial to still create a cool effect. So these 2 videos right here are from a series of Halloween videos we did back in 2015. And I just want to show you a little example of each of these. So we've all watched 360 VR videos, right? And I think we understand the conceit of spatial audio is just where we're looking at the time, we're only hearing those focused sounds, correct? Yeah, that's how it works. Let me just show you, based on the tools that they give us, kind of where we're at right now. So I want to show you this wide focus one. So essentially what I'm telling the program is, hey, let's hear everything at once. So just so you can get an idea.
360-degree video is best viewed on either a Google
Let's do this. You know what?
Chrome
This
web
one,
browser or a mobile device with headphones.
we'll still get the idea. Just want to show you a little bit of it. It's not quite wrapping. Theoretically, this should move. 1 sec. Yeah, let's bounce out. Come on. Technology, you guys. All right, this one's going.
360-degree video is best viewed on either a Google Chrome web browser or a mobile device.
So I want to go ahead and show you what I've done in this particular video. Since these are older, we used to do a disclaimer, hey, please wear headphones because this is pretty precise sound, and we don't necessarily want you listening back on just laptop speakers. What I did was run the girls' dialogue, there's 2 speaking at the time, they're the stars of this video, right down the center. And I just want to show you, this is as spatial as it can be. I did this on the tight focus setting. What happens when it hits YouTube finally?
And don't forget to turn out
So
the
let me
lights.
back this up just a little.
Video is best viewed
So we can all
on
hear
either
this
a
coming out of the
Google
center,
Chrome web browser
right?
or a
Should be
mobile
coming right
device
at us.
with headphones.
I'm just going to turn slightly. Notice that when I turn this, you will hear dead spots directly to the side of you. But notice what happens when I go 180 degrees behind.
This 360-degree video is best viewed on either a Google Chrome web browser
So
or
what you might notice there, even though back in my editing system, this is complete silence, still a pretty good amount of bleed in this black space, right? And we can hear their voice. Well, you do notice there's a little bit increase, that bass hum I've got going there comes up just a little bit.
a mobile device with headphones. And don't forget to turn out the lights.
But even when we spatialize to the best of our abilities, it still can create some issues. So I want to move on past this. Sorry guys, showing videos back sometimes creates problems inside these decks. All right. So the real question is, before I get into the nitty-gritty of how we actually spatialize and how to do best practice with this, is does your video need it? Right now, spatialized playback is only available watching on Chrome and on an Android mobile phone. Everyone else who watches it is gonna get a stereo file back. And the problem is, when you spatialized video, like say for example, we had someone screaming over there and I'm doing this presentation, it's a very important part of the story that they need to be screaming over there, but that you could also hear a clean recording of me speaking over here. You play that back and just Unspatialized stereo, well, what are you going to hear? You're going to hear me talking at the same volume as someone screaming. And that's a problem, because we're not getting our story across. It's just noise. So how do we combat this? Well, when we started making these videos back in 2015, before the platform supported any spatial audio at all, I just mixed things the way I usually did. So what I tried to consider is, what does the story need? So I want to show you a little bit of this that Brent showed earlier. This opening 15 to 20 seconds, you guys remember there's a horde of zombies crashing this cabin and are about to take on this brother and sister. It took me about a week to sound design because I had to create. It's easier when you're dealing with flat video because you're only dealing with one shot at a time. In a 360 sphere, well, let's just pull this up. I'll pause it and I just want to show you this environment. Okay, so we've got Lauren and Chris. These are our two great actors, but let's just take a look at what's going on around here. So we've got the action with them here, footsteps as they move around, the dialogue they're having, the foley of her bullet as she's trying to load it into this gun. We've got zombie horde out here, zombie horde out here, zombie horde that are going to burst from this side, and people beyond this door. So if I'm really there, if I'm really standing in this environment, it's going to be loud. Zombies, as far as we know in the world of fiction, very loud. What you're probably just going to hear is cacophonous noise. So it's our job as sound designers and mixers to just give you the details that push this story further, that help me feel, again, what Brent said earlier, empathy for these two characters in here. So let's watch just a few seconds of this back.
Device with headphones.
Mike, I'm not leaving you here!
Yes, you are.
Drop on the ground.
I can't hold much longer. Save your bullets. You're gonna need them.
So, just a simple technique there. What we're trying to do when we're playing this stuff back for viewers is never have them touch the volume ever. How many times are you guys at home watching something and just, it gets crazy loud, there's an explosion, you're like, oh God, I woke all my neighbors up. Generally not a good thing for a sound, is that you want to keep everything even all the time. You want your viewers to not have to do any work at all. So when we have big moments to highlight in an already noisy environment, there's a few tricks that we can use to make these things easier for us. And the biggest one is just turn things down. So I know in this moment, against all this cacophony, I needed to hear, actually, Brent, is this you on screen? Was that you?
Yeah,
pressed against the, yeah. So I knew when Brent hit this, I needed a big slam. And there's like 5 different sounds layered on top of there. There's the sound of his hands hitting the glass, there's some wood baked in there, there's his sound. I needed to make those prominent. So in that moment, so I didn't spike my entire mix, I turned everything down. And then as soon as he passes,
Mike, it's not
I'll
looking
bring
good!
everything else back
But
up.
keep looking, all right? Try another room.
So, as the short goes further, and we won't watch the entire thing, I'm doing the same thing. I'm not trying to highlight every single sound that's on screen, because it would just be impossible. One, I couldn't spend any more time editing, designing that stuff. 2, you don't need it. You just want to spend the time on the things where you want people looking.
Come on.
So as we go further, again, I'm focused on the gun. You can actually hear the sound of him grabbing her hands. I just turned down everything that was happening on the other side with the guy, because we didn't need it. This is actually a video where I really wish I did have some spatial technology to go back in, because there are some story points that hit later on. Actually, what's going to happen, you can kind of see it from here. Right now, there's a secret door that opens. But the problem inherently is like, well, there's a person getting murdered. I have to make the person sound getting murdered be louder than the door, because I did put in a but it was just stupid. These are decisions that you always have to be making, and questions you have to ask yourself all the time. What does the story need? Is it adding, or is it sound that's detracting? So let's move on a little bit. And again, so I'm gonna have to keep going. It's just my laptop doesn't like this thing. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit now, before we get more into actual spatialization, are just some basic film school sound things, because all these rules still apply. I think I started my little diatribe about listening while you record. Again, please do this. The other thing again, and let's play this game one more time. Let's all be quiet. You have to listen everywhere you go, not only to take the cues that you might later design, but what was happening on the other side with the guy, because we didn't need it. This is actually a video where I really wish I did have some spatial technology to go back in, because there are some story points that hit later on. Actually, what's going to happen, you can kind of see it from here. Right now, there's a secret door that opens. But the problem inherently is like, well, there's a person getting murdered. I have to make the person sound getting murdered be louder than the door, because I did put in a but it was just stupid. These are decisions that you always have to be making, and questions you have to ask yourself all the time. What does the story need? Is it adding, or is it sound that's detracting? So let's move on a little bit. And again, so I'm going to have to keep going. It's just my laptop doesn't like this thing. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit now, before we get more into actual spatialization, are just some basic film school sound things, because all of these rules still apply. I think I started my little diatribe about listening while you record. Again, please do this. The other thing again, and let's play this game one more time. Let's all be quiet. You have to listen everywhere you go, not only to take the cues that you might later design, but to avoid noise that's probably in the area that you're actually in. When you guys are shooting, wherever that may be, homes or apartments in particular, just play this little game yourself. When you go home tonight, just be quiet and listen to the room that you're in. There's probably about 10 different sounds that your brain has just turned off because you've been immersed in this room, that when you really start to listen, you will notice. Now the thing is, microphones are always listening. And that's good and bad. Good for your dialogue, but when that's noise, when that's air conditioning hum, when that's a refrigerator, pretty bad for actual recordings. It's just the stuff that makes the recording sound worse. It's noise. I have recorded demos of songs on my phone with the iPhone microphone. And frankly, they've come out great, because I've done it in a way where I know how to put a microphone at just the right distance, and I've gone around my apartment, turned off fans, turned off the air conditioner, and you can play them back to back. They sound as good as my $1,000 microphones if you're not listening too closely. It's just, the sound of your environment will be the sound of the recordings that you're making and your eventual VR video. Microphones don't lie, they just pick up everything. The other thing I want to mention here is that when you're actually listening back to your recordings, when you're working with a mixer, if you've got something just plugged in the camera, don't listen too loud. For one thing, it will cause you to set recording levels far too high, where you're clipping, or way too low because you're just not listening correctly. There is a sweet spot so that you don't damage your ears. It tends to be about 75%. This is going to give you the best perspective, not hurt your ears, and help you set good levels. So I want to talk a little bit about what's happening with the buzzwords and the sound industry in particular. So we have innovated some Ambisonic microphones. What's pictured here is the Sennheiser Ambio microphone. I've got the Zoom H2N microphone, which do record 4 channels each. And they're good. You know, they're good mics. There's nothing necessarily wrong with this technology. But they're limited by what microphones can actually do. I have seen crews go out with just these microphones attached to their camera. They'll come back and they'll try to edit their dialogue in a way that sounds professional, and unfortunately, they just can't. And there's a practical reason for this. It's that thing I was doing with the microphone earlier. This is actually a dynamic microphone that I'm using. I believe it looks like a dynamic microphone. And the thing about these, as you can tell, they have to be very, very close for you to hear them. There's a reason for that. When Bruce Springsteen's singing on stage, Born to Run, and he goes that whoa part, he's trying to keep out the sound of the drums and the saxophones and the guitars. We just want to hear Bruce's voice. These have a very, very great purpose, or excuse me, they work very well in loud environments. Now, when we're in a quiet space and we're actually trying to record dialogue, does everybody know what this type of microphone is? Shotgun condenser microphone, right? This is really what you want to reach for when you're doing a flat video, or frankly anything cinematic, because they can capture distance and they can capture clarity. If I tried to put this microphone in my hand on a boom pole and record Brent from over there, we're not going to hear anything. This guy, still pretty good, but again, microphones have certain limitations. Pretty much for all of them, about 1 to 3 feet is going to be your sweet spot of sound. And I do want to show you this example right now. It's actually a good use case for these Ambisonic microphones. There's nothing wrong with them. Again, they record environments well. They do 4 tracks, they spatialize well. You're limited in how you can use those things in post. They are locked in the position, but let's just check this out. So this is a recording of a marching band, I believe, in Spain, and they're using the Sennheiser. So we can hear the spatial. It's not dramatic, because we've talked about that. We know what the platform can do right now. But when I focus on certain instruments, they are attuned to be a little bit louder. It's in a few seconds here. I want to show you an example of how dialogue sounds in this environment. So we're tracking everybody. Where's the marching band leader? I believe it's this guy. So we can hear the toms and the snares going. Pretty soon, everyone's about to yell. Hear that hey? No. Barely, right? Because the microphone level is set to get those drums. And while they're getting a pretty good level, it's a little dissonant, it's a little boomy, there's a lot of noise in there. That hey, gone. You barely hear. And it's just the nature of what even these high quality Ambisonic microphones can record. If you want a voice, if you have to record dialogue, people talking, which for the stuff that we're doing, cinematic VR, even docu-style stuff, gotta use a microphone that is made for the job. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking while I'm grabbing this, why is he holding a boom microphone? Because if we're recording in a 360 environment, aren't you gonna see the guy that's holding it? Yes, you absolutely will. So the real trick to all this stuff, actually, we don't have that one up here. Are these guys right here. We're going to talk a little bit more about these in a second. But if you guys were doing cinematic VR, lavalier microphones are really the ticket. And we're going to watch a video about that just a second. Hold on. So, it's in mono. This is just how we record voices. It's just one track. That's all we need to get an even source of my voice. But lavalier microphones are the key to do this. Every short that Brent showed you, I mic'd with lavalier mics. It's the only way to do this. There are ways to hide them. Actually, here's a better question. Who's tried to hide a lav mic before? Yeah, and how has it gone?
Good.
It's hard, right? Let's talk about the issues with that for a second, because let me actually pull one of these out. These guys are small, right? And there's a lot of cable, and it's just a lot to deal with. If I was wearing this thing right now, let's say I actually attached it to myself properly, somewhere around there, and I was to just do this with the cable. Is that good? You can just yell it out to me.
No.
That causes cable noise, right? It's real bad. From either end of receiver or transmitter, I'll just hold up one right now, you can institute more problems. There's just a lot of wires going each and every which place. They're hard to control on people. But the secret is, and if we do any demo stuff later on, I can show you some tricks, securing these things correctly. And there's actually videos on, great videos, actually I believe it's called 7 Ways to Hide a Lavalier Microphone. That dude should be paid $50,000 for that thing because it's fantastic. And the secret is these things, and these guys they hate me talking about this because everywhere I go, you can just see these things falling off me. But what they are just little triangles of gaff tape. And there's just, you can see it right here. Taking 2 of them, and they're pretty easy to fold. They're just strips that you fold over and over, create a little air pocket. The thing is, when you smush a microphone between these, what it actually does is give you a lot of room for that microphone to move without it picking up that terrible rustling noise that destroys a signal very badly. It's very possible to hide these things. It takes a little practice, but you get better at it as you go along. And it's just a so much better solution than trying to mic VR videos or 360 video in any other way, because it just won't work. And we'll watch a few videos showing that stuff off in a bit. The one thing I do want to add is, and we could just do a nod or this for no, but when you guys are setting levels, do you ever think, hey, I'm not sure if this is good, but I can hear everything, so it sounds fine. Just tell me yes or no. Do you guys have trouble setting levels? No, okay. I do want to just, word of caution, when you guys are out there, I tend to see people recording either far too low or a little too hot. There is just an easy trick to setting a level, and it's this. When you're having someone speak for you, do your playback, 1, 2, 3, 4, blah, blah, blah. It's generally better to have them do something quiet. Roll that volume pot or gain pot, whatever you're using, to the point where it is clipping, just to where it's clipping. And then as they keep talking, take it back, take it back, take it back ever so slightly, and the sweet spot is actually right in the yellows. Hot levels are what you want to record good sound. It's what prevents me from spending hours and hours mixing. It's actually how you activate a mic and make it work the best way that it can. Okay, so this is the good stuff. I actually want to show you guys practical demos of different recording gear out in the field. So this is us at the YouTube space, actually walking around with some gear, and let's just check this thing out. Hello, I'm over here in the seats. Actually, you know what, stay there, I'll come to you. So, we're talking today. So note this is spatialized, but the source, and as you watch these videos, I've actually got the sources pinned, is from this stand. I just want you to hear the quality of sound as we're going to watch a few of these as we play back. So you'll notice the boom here, because I am very far away, just a phenomenon. Hello, I'm over here in the seat. Of what happens when, this isn't a very big screening room, I'm only about 15 feet away, but I had to boost my voice, I think about 20 decibels. So what happens is, actually, you know what, stay there. Sounds like snow, and it's just not good for recording. And watch what happens as I get closer. Come to you. So, we're talking today about recording spatial audio in VR, or capturing, whatever word you want to use. Now, the thing is, better, right? Clarity, you can kind of actually hear what I'm saying now, and that's just proximity to a microphone. The only thing I'm trying to get at here, and we're going to watch more of this, is close, and room mics are a feasibility, but docu-style, where you can actually show a microphone on camera, are pretty much going to be the only options you have there, unless you do want to take the time to mat that out. Very possible, but it just means more staging, more planning, and paying someone to do that for you in post-production.
I love booms. If I'm making a flat video, it's absolutely what I'm going to use. You don't have to mix them, and they just sound fantastic.
The other thing I want to note here, and if you guys are ever doing a bigger production, is the footprint of what doing proper recording using a real lav set will take. And that's actually everything on that cart right there. So that's my lab boxes, that's my mixer, that's all the cables and everything else. So in a normal VR video, usually I've still got all that stuff, but I'm hiding behind something.
Have the liberty to have boom operator off screen, that's even better. They're fantastic and wonderful.
Check out
But
Brent
the problem
helping
is,
out.
in a VR 360 environment, Brent, turn that microphone towards me. There we go. How do I sound? I'm using the audio from just that microphone right now. Does it sound present and clean, or boomy and reverby and far away?
Now in the room we're in now, these speakers are very far away. It's a big room. There's a lot of slap in here. You can't quite hear the quality difference, but it is pretty traumatic. And that's just, again, distance. All I'm trying to get out here, I'm sorry I'm beating you over the head at this point, get your microphones close.
And probably not very useful. Take your time, really listen to it. It's not very good. So, the thing is, to do this, you gotta give everyone a lav mic. It's just, I'm sorry, I know, I asked you to be here, you did great. He gets his feelings hurt, you know.
What I want you to notice here is just immediate clarity, presence. You'll hear a lot more low end in my voice with the lavalier microphone. And these are things, if you guys, again, are doing cinematic VR, completely essential on set. I'll see productions where they don't order enough or book enough lav mics for their shoot. And they're like, oh, it'll get picked up on another microphone. That will not happen. Every person needs a lav mic. It's just, the difference in quality will be so dramatic, it'll take the audience out.
Lav mics. You gotta give every performer each one on screen. Even microphones that are attached to the camera, and there's one here right now, and I'll use this audio for this moment, are just not good enough quality to mix and put out in presentable form. So what we're gonna be talking about today.
So that was actually this camera right here. And while this isn't actually an Ambisonic mic, you're gonna experience the same results that if you used one. And this actually has everybody know what automatic gain control is? If you've ever used an old style camcorder, it's your worst nightmare. Because basically what it does is it says, let me put this down without dropping this guy. There's a level of sound, and it's pretty loud, and I want everything to be there all the time, even when there's not loud sound coming in. So what you get is that shh, or weird voices going between being very loud and very soft all the time. So I very much recommend, these are fine as scratch mics. Don't ever put anything out where you might do with an internal microphone or camera. Please, just for my sake.
That's how to use the audio that you record cleanly and spatialize it with post technology in a way that sounds professional and frankly fantastic. So thank you guys.
All right, thank you, mate. 1 second, we're gonna have to do this game every time I show a video. I'm sorry. Okay, back to present. All right, so in tandem with that, I want to show you how we can spatialize and still deal with people moving around, different sources. It is possible. That's exactly what I've got going on here. And let's just take a watch.
Relax your body. Make sure don't do that. Oh God, just don't hurt yourself. So we're talking right now about practical way.
And as we watch this, you'll notice the tiles change as the source of my voice change. I just want you to hear the difference between these.
Is to record your sound in a spatial environment. So I'm still wearing that lav that I was earlier, but I've asked Brent to try to boom me off camera just to kind of show you how that works and how problematic it really can be.
I'm doing a great job.
You're doing a great job. Even with a boom on a stand, you're going to face issues recording in this environment because just frankly, the mics aren't close enough to be present to get good audio. They need to be within about 1 to 2 feet for good sound. Now, the other point I want to make right now is that a lot of producers and directors think, hey, I can just throw a mic on the camera and that sounds goodness. Don't hurt yourself.
That is true. It's okay. We talked about it later.
We can just throw a mic on the camera and that'll sound fine. Now we're actually using a Samsung Gear 360 here, and it has an internal mic built into it. But if I'm to talk with someone like Joanne, who's not wearing a microphone, well, how's that gonna work?
Hey there, it's not gonna work, I don't think.
Well, you know, let's see. How was your day today?
It was okay. It was done for lunch, not usually done first.
I agree with you. It's not my favorite. As you can tell, even though Joanne's story was fantastic, you just couldn't hear the wonderful, ripe details. The important thing to remember is to invest in lavalier mics on set. They are the tool that you need to get the sound in these environments. It may cost a little more in front, but you don't have to spend it on the back end. So thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
All right.
They can't hear you.
Oh yeah. So, capturing your non-impossible, picking a location that, actually, this is something I didn't mention earlier that I wanted to. Brent said this earlier, location is king. That's absolutely true. That's so key for 360. But for sound, almost even more particularly. If I wanted to do a 360 video on the side of a highway, what's the problem with that? It's real loud. Cars are loud. You would have to ADR that entire video. There's, even with lavalier microphones being isolated and close, there's no way that you can do that. And just when you guys are out producing your own thing, looking around, producer says, what do you think about this? Think about sound. It is a big consideration. ADR is very expensive. Has anyone ever had to do, does everyone know what ADR is?
Yeah.
Automatic dialogue replacements. If you guys have ever watched Lord of the Rings, they actually shot that movie in a sound stage next to an airport. The entire movie's ADR, but they spent a lot of money on it, and they're very talented, so you can hardly tell. Please try to avoid it as best you can. So, let's pull this up. Let's say we've captured good sound. We have done all the things that we needed to do. Everything sounds great. We've edited. I do want to explain to you a little bit, if you guys are ever wanting to do spatial, what that process is right now. And it's changing, and I'll talk about that a little bit. It involves exporting your audio from Premiere, Final Cut, whatever your editing system is, because unfortunately, none of them can output spatial audio files correctly. So you can either use Pro Tools HD Rig right now, which is very expensive if you have one. The cost-effective method is Reaper. If you guys want to go home right now and start doing spatial audio design on your own, 60 bucks. The plugins right now are actually all free. All these developers are just trying to get them to people's hands. So from the first one is Blue Ripple to Rondo 360, which is something I'm working on with the developers of that right now, to Facebook 360s. I hate to say that. All good tools, I have to say, just because they've been the first and have put the most stuff out there. Facebook's FB360 tool is kind of leading the way here, and I'll get into a little bit more why. So once you spatialize everything, sounds great. In your editing system, you'll notice it's way more spatial than what happens when you actually upload that file. You have to mux, and I mentioned this at the very beginning, and encode those files, upload, quality check them, because what you hear in your system will not be what plays back on YouTube. And actually, if you look at this graphic closely, you're actually going to see this is all my upload attempts of all those videos from earlier that are behind these. So it takes a while. Unfortunately, YouTube's algorithm just doesn't treat these as well as regular flat videos yet, and sometimes they won't process correctly. You got to throw a little bit more effort at it, but it's possible. So when we're actually spatializing, I want to demystify this process to you. If you guys think it's super complicated, it's not that complicated. What you'll see on the left there is my edited Pro Tools session. And I try to clean everything up. I organize my tracks by type. You'll see dialogue at the top in the yellows. All my sound effects are blue. My backgrounds are just right under those. And we're just moving a little knob around. If you see on here, this little tool, it's a cross. You'll notice that the center is just our head, and as we track points, we're just moving them around us. Now again, not as spatial as it could be, but it's getting there and it's getting better. Things that you can do to enhance it, improve this further. The tool actually comes, and I'm highlighting FB360 here right now. It comes with the abilities to control the sound of the room, which make those spatializing plugins work better. I can actually tell it how wide a room is, how long it is, how tall it is, how much I want the high end to be dampened inside a room, which is a pretty significant thing as you go to different locations. I can also choose to increase the focus size, what I'm seeing on screen, how much of it I'm actually capturing. And all of this stuff, with everything you do, again, this is new, you just gotta try it, reiterate, because it takes a little manipulation to make things sound natural in the way we want to in an environment. It's all controlled through automation. You can see here really closely, you've just got to track right here, this section right here, little dots around. I will say it's a little tricky if you guys ever want to do something in a circle. Tool doesn't quite work that well for that. You'll notice this was actually me walking around the room here. See this line? Go down, but I hit a certain point. Oh, I gotta go back up, and this line actually traced further down. So just to highlight this a little more, let's check this video out right here.
Now guys, as you can see, what we're about to talk about is sound design in your spatial audio projects. Now the thing is, just like that squeak right here, you're gonna have to add about 99% of sounds. But they're the things that will glue your viewer's eye to the screen.
So you'll notice as we watch this, I want to point out a few things because some stuff just happened to the screen. Notice that there are actual lines that populated my video view. And much like Brent's, what do you call that thing that you
Safe guides?
Yeah, Brent's safe guidelines, these are very similar to that. When I'm in the editing system, especially Ghost, the thing I showed you, which most of the screen is black, you can just get lost and not know where things, if you got something happening on screen and you just slightly askew that in the tool, it'll happen way over here and not where you want it to be on screen. So this is why I do this. Whenever I'm exporting a video, I'll just lay out a simple grid line. I'm going to show you what that looks like across the thing. It just helps you put things in more precisely. The other thing I want to point out as we watch this is that I've got relative levels. If you guys are ever wondering how loud things need to be in a mix of how we bounce them out, I'm going to talk a little bit about that when we get into it.
It's what makes spatial audio so compelling. As you move around, you're hearing the sounds that you expect to hear. I put in these little buzzes on the lights. There's a little bit of room tone coming out of the vents from the ceiling. As I walk around back here, you can see my friends rudely talking in the background, but I asked them to, so it's fine. It's part of what makes the environment real and sound interesting for the viewer. Now,
take pictures if you need to. All right, we're gonna go over a couple things. How to break down a production from the business side, not just VR production, but a production in general. 2, 5 questions you should ask for every 360 in VR project. Brent gave you a preview of this on his slide from the very first presentation. We're gonna spend a couple more minutes on this, just because it is super important when it comes to actually trying to make money to do this. 3, how to outline a creative brief. Has anybody outlined a creative brief doing client work? Show of hands? Excellent, excellent. I will fly through this. Very important, if you haven't done it, please take pictures of that. It's pretty basic, but it all is going to help you make a better product. Next part, how to outline a VR and 360 budget. Obviously, if you guys have lined out budgets before for your own projects or for client work, it makes sense to you, but let me tell you, there are definitely special considerations whenever you are shooting 360 in VR. So if you're looking at any of the stuff Brent and David were talking about, guess what? That is all specialized work. Using specialized equipment, you must account for it, right? Excellent. And of course, we'll sort of touch on price points a little bit as far as levels of execution and timelines. Obviously, because we are dealing in a specialized skill, timelines are going to be a little different than we are in traditional filmmaking. Other things too are levels of execution, and that kind of goes into client budgets and what their expectations are and what your expectations are. And then of course, everybody's favorite, common client questions, which I'm sure if you've done any of this, you'll see that a lot of your clients have a lot of the same questions. So let's get started. How to break down a 360 production. How to approach an experience. Again, this is an experience, not a video. not anything else. It's an experience. We're trying to have people, we're trying to drive empathy. All right? So 5 questions to consider for every 360 project. 5 questions to consider for every 360 project. Is there a reason to put the viewer in your scene? Great. You guys kind of know that. I love the fact that you are all taking pictures. This warms my heart. I love it. 2, will VR 360 give your viewers an experience that they cannot otherwise have? Again, Brent touched on this. 3, will your recording environment be rich with things to see? Make sure it does. Use art department, use production design, use all the tricks you have in your filmmaking tool bag to make sure you have something that is awesome and interesting. 4, do you want your viewers to look all around or at a fixed point? Make a choice. Make a choice. Like all filmmaking, make a choice. 5, will the viewers want to continue watching, or will you have that horrible, horrible sinking feeling you get when someone takes off the HMD after 10 seconds and goes, oh, dude, that was great. God, I hate that so much. But again, this is par for the course. So you need to plan for these things in advance. Think about it like a cold open if you're writing a TV show. Hook your viewers right away. Have something cool happen immediately. Don't assume your viewers have time to sort of go, all right, well, this is like a jam band. They'll warm up to it. They are not going to, okay? Like, I'm sorry to break it to you. One last question, and this is question number 6. Gotcha. This is an important question, and again, Brent touched on it. Take a picture of this. Does this have to be a 360 experience? And if the answer is yes, hold on. You might have a 360 experience. Damn it, I screwed up my own punchline and almost swore too. So here's the deal. Make sure you can answer this question correctly. Make sure your clients can answer this question correctly, because if not, I'm sorry, you have a regular framed video. Please check your creative. And again, that's not a problem. I would probably say close to 1/3 to half of our work is still framed work. Just because we are VR experience makers does not mean we forgot how to shoot with cameras. We all came from filmmaking backgrounds, so of course we still offer that service. And if you come from those environments too, offer that as a skill set. Don't turn business away like us, who are not smart sometimes. So we've of course amended our client briefs to let people know, hey, guess what? We can still do this. We're moving forward, not going to turn down as much work because we still offer this. All right, so let's focus on and assume someone actually has a possible 360 experience. Let's talk about the all-important bidding jobs, because the first question you will get from your client, besides, hey, I want to shoot a 360 video, is, how much is this going to cost me? Does anybody have an answer?
A lot.
It depends.
What is your budget?
It depends. And the reason is the same thing you would with any other job. Do you want to shoot Titanic, or do you want to shoot a skate video? Like, do those things cost the same amount? Absolutely not. So your creative is very dependent upon what you want to achieve. And here we're going to break it down just a little bit. Basic info for any creative brief. Take pictures, please. For those of you who haven't done this before, you need some very basic information in order to give someone a in-depth creative brief, but also so you can bid this job effectively. 1, is there creative? Is it locked in? A lot of times, clients will not have creative locked in and will expect you to come up with that. Are you burning calories on that? Are you spending time doing this? Creative costs money. Ad agencies exist for a reason, and guess what? You should be compensated for it, unless you're just a nice guy or gal. Charge for that. Charge for that unless you don't want to. Intended destination. Where are your final outputs? Where are these going? Are these just going to Facebook? Are they just going to YouTube? Are they going to Oculus? Are they going to Gear? Are they going to any of the other proprietary sites that are out there? You need to know where your final product's going to live in order so you can